Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Good, and I hope you're doing well today, tonight, or whenever you are listening to this. On this week's episode, I am going to be talking about the recently released show on Netflix known as Arcane, a League of Legends story, or something along those lines. So, as with all the things I usually talk about here, I'm going to go over kind of some things that'll be spoiler-free, and then I will definitely let you know when we are into spoiler territory. Anyway, I want to talk briefly before we get into the show about my personal relationship with League of Legends. League of Legends came out when I was a freshman in college, and I will never forget seeing my friends start playing this game, and it was like in its beta or something. And I was like, oh, who's this person with this ice arrow and what is this? And they were addicted to it, and soon I was too. I got really into it for a long time, for a few years. And I played a ton. I used to play Gangplank. When Rengar finally came out, I used to play him a bunch. Little Blitzcrank action. My gosh, who else did I play? Twitch back in the day. I don't know if any of those characters are still viable, but I did enjoy the game. It was a love-hate relationship, though, because it was such a stressful thing, and it would eat up at least 35 to 45 minutes of your life every game. And it used to be a kind of a stressful thing, especially with my friends, who it would be really fun when we were winning and sometimes not so much fun when we were losing. And the thing, too, was that with that type of game, and a lot of games still today, there's not really necessarily any progression. It's just about you getting better at the game, trying to read a bunch of patch notes when they change things, and then also maybe getting some costumes along the way. But for all the games I've ever played in my life that I put a ton of time into, I don't know if I ever spent any money on that game, believe it or not. I was gifted things, which was really nice, but I just never saw the point in getting costumes and stuff. I was just there to play with my friends. But I have a soft spot for League of Legends in that respect, even though I haven't indulged in that franchise for a while now. Oh my gosh, almost a decade. And I was kind of thinking okay, Arcane, I've seen this kind of around. I saw I was getting promoted. I'm getting promoted out here in California. I was thinking, oh, okay, I'll check it out. But man, oh man, I was not prepared for what I was about to see. So what the heck is Arcane? Arcane is a animated show, mostly CG, but also mixed in with hand-drawn animation, about these characters that live in Runeterra, more so the city of Piltover and the undercity of Zaun. Piltover is basically that kind of pie-in-the-sky dream, wants to be a utopia, really technologically advanced, really shiny and nice, kind of that high fantasy dreamland that you could probably picture. And then Zaun is kind of the opposite. It's underneath, literally, of Piltover, and it's very seedy underbelly, kind of creepy, shady deals going on all the time, that sort of thing. And we focus on a few main characters from kind of both sides of it. The two main ones would be Vi and Powder, who eventually becomes a different character, I'll say that much, in the League of Legends universe. And also Jace, who some other people might know. Those are the three primary ones, and then also his scientific lab partner, Victor. We follow the story of Vi and Powder and their kind of motley crew in the Undercity, kind of, doing things here and there, maybe stealing a few things up in Piltover, just trying to kind of scrape by, but also maybe make a name for themselves in some regards, especially Vi. But there seems to be this kind of weird dichotomy, but also this kind of this stress that has started out because this show takes place over a couple of years, I'll tell you that much, and between Zaun and Piltover, where it's you have these criminals that are kind of amassing in Zaun and are really frustrated with how Piltover runs things, and Piltover kind of rules over them, like I said before, literally, but with an iron fist with these enforcers. Now, man, I gotta just say, I want you guys to know this. This is a show I think for anybody, regardless if you know League of Legends or not, will get a kick out of. Yeah, it's got a 16 plus rating, so just keep that in mind. But it is so well done. I was so amazed because the first couple episodes I felt were a little bit slow. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then it really kicks up, and the CG in this is so great, and it's mixed in with this hand-drawn animation. And there's so much attention to detail. One of my favorite things is how they show smoke in this, or like steam, in and amongst these various scenes. And so, for example, there might be two characters talking over some cups of tea, and they're, they don't need to do this, but they put like steam coming off of the tea. Or like when an explosion happens, you can see the smoke kind of drawn in different ways. And I, in the past, have been someone who's not the biggest fan of like cel-shaded animation. I don't think I would call this that. This is something, it feels like it's new, or it feels like it's knocking on the doors of the big movie companies and saying, hey, look we're not making just, an hour and a half or a 2 hour thing. We are making 45-minute episodes of this stuff. And it's kind of mind blowing to me just because of the quality of it all. It's just so much fun to watch. And then once in a while, they'll throw some stuff in there that kind of changes it up, and, shifts it depending on like the music for a moment, or just how a character is thinking or feeling, or everything like that, and how they intercut everything. It's just a true buffet for the eyes. It's just a visual feast, and I adore it for that, because I just want to see an anthology series of League of Legends characters, because that's what I thought this was going to be, where each episode would focus on a different one of them, just so we could kind of get them all, versus trying to kind of attempt to tie them together before they're actually in this kind of, battle royale situation. Well, maybe not battle royale, but, teams fighting each other. But they do a great job of tying these characters, these disparate characters, together, where you have Jace, who is kind of like Iron Man. He's this forward thinker, kind of futurist that, is going to break some of the rules to make some stuff happen, where he's trying to harness the power of the arcane. And that's something that the leader, basically, of Piltover, or one of the main council members, the one who founded the city, Heimerdinger, is very kind of against. He's like, I've seen this happen before, where people try to take magic and try to make it their own, and it never ends well. Now, I thought it would be tough for them to kind of wrap that story in with these kind of two Zonites who are kind of living off the streets and all that, but they do a great job of actually bringing it full circle and making it feel much more natural. It's not like in the first few episodes they've all met and they're all fighting or, on the same side. It's not like that. There are multiple storylines going on here, running parallel with each other, but they do a great job of also making it pretty straightforward and easy to understand once you get past kind of that beginning portion. Now, again, like I said before, I have this kind of long-running, relationship, as it were, with League of Legends, so a lot of these characters are ones that I am familiar with, and I was curious to see who was going to become whom, and, other characters they've kind of teased, and I'm not really sure about all of it, because I only got a little bit into the lore of League of Legends way back in the day, which, by the way, is very, very fascinating and really well done. Now, not only are they doing Arcane, but a great game studio that I love, Airship Syndicate, just came out with a game, Ruined King, which is turnstile based, again, like Battle Chasers, featuring more League of Legends characters like Katarina and Braum, is that what his name? Yasuo, a bunch of people. Anyway, and then also there's like a mobile game, and there's all this stuff coming out from League of Legends, and there's so much, there's a few different ways now to consume the stories and the world that League of Legends has built, because it is really, really fascinating. However, I haven't really tried those out, but Arcane, to me, seems like one of the best ways to do that. It is so great. The world itself is fascinating, and the cool thing is that Runeterra is massive. It's much bigger than just a few cities, right? Like every, piece of lore out there, you focus on a few main spots, but there's so much more they could get into. And I'm hopeful, with the name being so broad, like Arcane, which on the surface, if you'd be like, Arcane, what's that even? I don't know what that means, but that would allow them to tackle almost any of the characters in some capacity, which is pretty great. And it gives me more hope that I can see my boy Rengar take down Kha'Zix. Basically, if you guys don't know Rengar, it's like he's a big cat man. He's basically like the Predator, and Kha'Zix is like a xenomorph, kind of, sort of. That's being very reductive, but that's kind of, I think, the original concepts were born from that. But yeah, I just want to see more of this because this art style is so captivating, gripping to me. And I just really love how it's done, where it is just so, I don't know, it's visually stunning, maybe is the way I would put it. And there feels like there's just so much depth and character put into every single frame. It's just so great. And the framing too, side note, the framing is so good. The camera work in this, which not a lot of people talk about, I think, with these types of CG movies, but that's a big thing that I'm still learning about myself. It's so well done. Like how it moves and tilts, or like when a character gets knocked over and you like follow them and the camera kind of falls down with them, or they might turn over and the camera will turn with them. But then, like I said before, with the framing, where it's always like they'll have just one of the characters framed perfectly between like two plants or like a doorway or something. And it's just like, oh my gosh, there was so much thought and effort put into these characters, which is so crazy to me because the first time I ever interacted with most of them was them just getting dropped in a game and hoping that they were viable options. Ooh, you see, viable? I'm so sorry. Anyway, but like that was it. You get like a picture of them, their, summary or their bio and their moves, and then kind of like suggested items. And that was it for the most part. And now we get to see like how these characters like came to be. And that to me is really interesting. It's like, okay, now you're starting to get me a little bit. And it even got me to watch like one of the games from the most recent League of Legends Worlds tournament, which I was watching it and I was like, yep, this still pretty much seems like League of Legends. Even though I've seen changes, there are changes, admittedly, but for the most part, it still seems the same. But it's cool to see that Riot is taking this massively popular game and building out the world. This is stuff that I've wanted to see done with stuff like Overwatch. I feel like that is a franchise that is just ripe for the picking as far as making a show like this or an anthology show. If you guys have ever seen like the trailers they would do for each character, I guess they didn't do it for every single one, but they would kind of do like little mini 4 or 5 minute stories. They're like Pixar shorts basically, or Disney animation shorts. They're just stunning. And this feels like it's at that level. Even though it does have a different artistic style. It's not like the perfect glossy shiny that Overwatch is. But this definitely is something unique in its own right. And I really, really hope, we are already getting a second season. I can say that much. But I really, really hope that they continue kind of fleshing this out and they're not afraid to really blow open the world and really tackle some other stuff too. And again, maybe an anthology series would be kind of not up their alley. I liked how What If did it with Marvel recently, where they kind of jumped around and, cherry picked different things. But yeah, obviously we all have our favorite characters, and we're not even getting into the bigger stuff that they've teased, which I'm going to get into now because I'm going to flip the old spoiler switch. Are you guys ready? Here we go. You guys can't see it anymore, but the sparks, there's still sparks. Oh gosh. Anywho, the bigger stuff they're talking about, one of the counselor characters who becomes a love interest for Jace, her mom is actually from Noxus, which is one of the kind of major countries and superpowers, I believe, in the world of Runeterra. And this is not to mention that there's also another one known as Demacia, who you guys might know, like Garen or Jarvan the Fourth, I think it is. Jarvan 4th or 6th? I think it's 4. But there is so much more out there, and talking about kind of the war that might be coming between these factions here, and how Piltover is maybe in the middle of it just because of the technology and the progress that they've made, and how those things can be used to, ensure victory going forward. I think that's so fascinating. And speaking of Victor E, Victor's in this. There's another character I used to play a little bit back in the day. This is Jace's, like I said before, or aforementioned science partner. And in the show, he is a young man from Zon who has a kind of crippling ailments, which is becoming terminal. And he eventually kind of becomes this cyborg guy. And I always knew him as like this super like advanced technological, like kind of Dr. Doomish character, right? But in this show, you get to see him before all of that, even though he is going towards that very quickly, the one that I know. And his origin kind of, and the fact that somebody loses their life during his kind of science experiment gone wrong, it was like kind of like, oh man, it was it's kind of powerful in a way. I was like, oh, geez. But that's only one of the transformations we see over time, because Vi and Powder do get separated when they're younger. Vi gets sent off to a prison known as Stillwater, and Powder ends up getting like raised by their father figure's old friend, but then like new arch rival named Silco. Who's Silco, by the way, as like the main kind of bad guy for the show. He's the kingpin of the underworld, basically. Is so well done, so interesting, and I wish we could have seen more of him. But he gets a lot of time in this. I just was trying to think, like, is he like a character moving on later on? Maybe he'll come back and I'll be wrong and I'll be like, oh, it was that guy all along. He just needed to go away and then come back. But Powder's transformation, we don't really see it, but we see what she becomes, and that's Jinx. Now, Jinx is, I think for a lot of people, and I know myself included, she was very like Harley Quinn when we first saw her. She's kind of this kind of crazy, gun-happy villain, or villainess, I should say. And I remember thinking, yeah, she's not super compelling, but her kit's kind of interesting, and she's a pretty intelligent person. Has the ability to make her own weapons and kind of tinker with things, and that makes her cool. But in this show, they do a great job of making her feel like a very distinct character. She is very traumatized by her youth and things that have happened and have forced her to become this kind of loose cannon, as it were. And I think she's really well done, and she's actually kind of scary. The way they shoot her sometimes, especially later on, she seems like this force to be reckoned with. Like, when she shows up, people are like, you gotta get out of here. Like, which is kind of interesting, but it's done well. It's done really well. And I think her character going forward will still be this compelling force that drives the narrative. And seeing her relationship with her sister Vi as they go forward, and kind of the sad falling apart of that is something that I've kind of been interested in, because when they both kind of came out a long time ago, it was like Vi is after Jinx and Jinx doesn't want to be captured by Vi. And I'm sure there was more to it than that, but I remember thinking, okay, I was like, classic, like there's a cop who's trying to bring down this villain and they just keep going, round and round. But there's a lot more to it. Also, another character that I like to see pop up here is Caitlin, the sniper from Piltover, who comes from a pretty nice family, pretty posh, but she and Vi kind of end up teaming up as a pair, and she's kind of this, like, very straightforward, like, we need to get this done, but it's clearly never gotten her hands dirty, whereas Vi has just, like, lived in that her whole life. So the two of them working together is pretty fun and makes sense to me. So the main characters right there, kind of Vi, Jinx, Caitlin, Jace, and Victor. And then also another character that I'm not really as familiar with, but a lot of people are, is Echo. He's another one of the kids from back in Zon. I think he might be a fan favorite. I'm not exactly sure, but he has a pretty decent role to play as well, and ends up eventually kind of befriending Heimerdinger, who way back in the day was this kind of just like really weird, crazy, wacky little guy that they ended up kind of retooling and making him more Yoda-esque, where he is this kind of just this not all-knowing force, but this kind of voice for wisdom throughout, the League of Legends kind of mythos, as it were. But again, kind of getting different characters like one of the founders of Piltover, who gets kicked off the council and ends up teaming up with Echo and kind of trying to learn more about him and the world that he has never really seen down in Zon as much. Yeah, it's just cool. There's just like a lot going on here, but it's still really digestible. And I really, really enjoyed it. And again, I can't stress this enough. Your mileage is going to vary depending on what types of kind of media you like to consume. But if you're a fan of any type of CG animation or video games, or like me, if you're a fan of both, you would get a kick out of this. It's really well done. There are 9 episodes that came out over a couple of weeks, it seems like, and season 2 has already been greenlit. And I cannot wait to see that because once the show really, has established these characters and stuff, and then it jumps into the fight scenes, which are just so well done. The action in this really, really has this sense of weight and speed, and it gets kind of like intimidating and scary sometimes because you're like, wow, I don't even know what's happening. So like, it makes me think of like what will happen one day when they if they really do attempt to make like a League of Legends show in like the arena of League of Legends, like all that stuff, which is crazy. And also they're coming out with a fighting game because why not? I don't know. Like it makes me smile to think that a big company like Riot and stuff, and obviously there's more to it than just making stuff for the fans, because it's not just that, but it's cool to see them flesh out their world and into these different kind of mediums. And I want to see that happen for a lot of other things too. Oh, it's just so cool. So I highly recommend checking out Arcane if you can. Again, it's on Netflix right now. You can go check it out over there. Let them know Jimmy sent you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if that. They'd be like, who? What? But I would really love to know what you guys think of Arcane. If you've watched it, if you haven't, please let me know. If you are watching or listening to this on YouTube, just leave it down in the comments. But if you're listening somewhere else, please just tweet at me. I'm at JimmyGood013. I would love to hear from you. Anyway, now we're going to move into that segment of the show that I like to call, that you like to call, that we all like to call Time Killers. That's right. It's time for Time Killers. Yeah. So besides Arcane, I've started watching the newly released first 2 episodes here of Hawkeye. No, that's not Hawkeye. It's actually pronounced Hot Guy. No, I'm just kidding. That's over on Disney Plus. And you know what? It feels very much like it feels more so like what did I say, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, in that it's like a movie that they've broken up into some episodes versus something a little more serialized, like maybe Loki would be. But yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. Jeremy Renner and some of the ramifications of the Avengers are just like so cool to see. I love it when there are consequences. I love a world that respects and understands what's come before it. And that's definitely what we're seeing here. And also Haley Steinfeld, she's great. She's always great. So I'm excited to see more of that show. But I don't want to say like yay or nay until we see the rest of it. I'm sure I'll be all in, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'll just let it play out over the few more episodes that it has. I think it's 6 or something like that. And it is very, very heavily Christmas influenced. So if you're watching this right now or listening to this, I would recommend watching it around, as it comes out for Christmas, or maybe wait till next year, because it's very like Christmas songs and it's snowing in New York, and yeah. So keep that in mind as well. Besides that, I've been playing some Halo Infinite multiplayer, which has been great. I love Halo. It's just a fun game. It's super duper fair. It's so fair. When I, get taken out, I know why. It's not like typically, unless I'm playing Fiesta, where they're just giving people random weapons. I know like where I screwed up, and as opposed to some other games where I'm like, oh, I couldn't really counter that. In Halo, it's like, yeah, you can figure out what went wrong and do better next time. So, and I've just been hanging out and playing that with Joe, which has been great. And also, I was watching a bunch of My Hero Academia. I think I'm mostly caught up. I've just been rewatching it. I gotta stop watching it again and again and again. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that is going to do it for the show here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. I appreciate you guys. Again, I know we're kind of more on like an every other week basis. I hope that works for you. If you guys would like this back on a week-to-week basis, let me know. Work's just been kind of busy. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys want. Please tell me. If you want to kind of stay more up to date with everything over on Twitter, you can find me at GoCritical, or just Critical Reviews. That's what it is over there. Or you can find me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. So that's at GoCritical or at JimmyGood013. Either one will find me. Let's see what else. We've got the merchandise, if anybody's interested in that. And I've been cranking out a ton of Disney vlogs because those are easy to do and so much fun. Please let me know if you guys would like to see some more Disney stuff talked about here on the show. I've even flirted with the idea of doing a fully separate podcast just for Disney, so we can kind of do one every other week. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I want to hear what you guys like. And a huge thank you to our Patreon members. That's just amazing. Like the fact that anybody, first off, listens to this stuff. I appreciate that so much. But let alone gives me money every month to continue to make it and support me. That's huge, especially after my big move. So thank you so much. And also, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start shouting people's names out at the end here. So if you want a shout out, you put it down in the comments or leave it somewhere. But I know that Ryan is listening all the way to the end of this. And I know Jason is probably listening all the way to the end of this. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate that much. And anybody else who's just hanging out here today. You guys are the best. Thank you. And also look forward to me showing up on another person's podcast very soon. I will definitely tweet it out and let you guys know. I'm looking forward to it. But if you have any other suggestions for folks to team up with in the future, just let me know and we'll reach out. Sounds good. Anyway, until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.